Hi everyone, I'm Vladislav and we continue studying Adobe Illustrator. Today we'll start observing objects and we'll begin with the simple ones, also known as primitives. And for this we'll imagine ourselves as architects. In other words, we'll build a city. First of all, we need a background and we'll make it out of two rectangles, like in the first lesson, the sky and the grass. Later, we'll have a lot of objects, so in order to select them and not to deselect the background, we'll lock in these rectangles. To do this, you should select them and press Object menu, Lock, Selection or Ctrl 2. You can unlock them later with the Object Unlock All command or Ctrl Alt 2 anytime you want. Next, we'll build a house. And of course we'll start with a rectangle. For beginning, we'll draw a main part of the building with a rectangle and we'll make it brown. And then in the same way we'll make a blue window. Just one for now. If you have any difficulties with it, you can watch the first video. Everything is described there. Then we'll combine a building and the window into a group. Groups are a combination of objects which we can simultaneously move, transform, etc. To join objects into a group, you should select them, then press Object menu, Group or Ctrl G. Or you can right-click selected objects and select Group command in the context menu. Now all objects in the group can be selected just in one click, but also we can get into the group or rather enter isolation mode. Relevant during COVID times, isn't it? So, in this mode, we can work with objects of this group or create new objects in it without paying attention to the objects around. We can get into the group by double-clicking the group. For now, our task is to place windows on the facade of the building. You already know that we can duplicate objects, dragging them while holding an Alt key. And if you also hold Shift, you can move the duplicate in a straight line. An alternative way to move to exact distance is based on the properties of the selection tool. We can see them by double-clicking a tool or pressing Enter key if this tool is already selected. Here you can move the selected object to a certain distance horizontally, vertically and at the angle to exact distance. And the most important is that you can move either an object or its copy by pressing the appropriate button, Copy. But we need to make several duplicates, preferably at the same distance. Smart guides can help us with this, but if they don't work for some reason, there's another interesting way. In Adobe Illustrator, we have one command which lets us remake the last step, or rather repeat the transformation. This is the command Object, Transform, Transform again, or Ctrl D. Thus, drag one window while holding Alt and Shift keys, and then we'll press Ctrl D required number of times. And we'll do the same in the other direction. But if you've multiplied windows with pressed Alt key pretty chaotically, you can still align and distribute created objects. Both of these operations can be done either with the Control panel or Align and Distribute panel from a window menu. Align means that we place extreme points of selected shapes or their centers along one imaginary line. We can align both horizontally, left, right side or center, and vertically, top, bottom side or center, as well as fit this imaginary line to borders of selection, to borders of artboard, or to key object. To mark such an object, firstly we select all objects we want to align, and then click an object we want to be the main one. After aligning, this object will stay still, but other objects will be aligned to its chosen side. As for the distribute, here we place selected shapes with the same interval, but we can choose whether these intervals will be measured between centers of shape, same sides or adjacent sides. The last method is available only with the appropriate panel and can be turned on in the sandwich menu of this panel by a Show Options command. For identical objects, there is no difference between all distribution options. To visualize that, let's try distributing different objects. That's what align and distribute are. Let's remove the axis and move on. We can add a ledge on the top of the roof for detailing. Now we can exit an isolation mode. For this, we should double-click an empty space or press an arrow in the top left corner of the document window. The house is done. We can multiply this building throughout the illustration, but keep in mind, further houses are smaller than the ones in the foreground. To scale objects without losing proportions, hold Shift while scaling. Or on the familiar to you Transform panel, you can find the chain button next to Height and Width parameters, and make sure that it is turned on. Well, so that the city does not seem completely monotonous, you can color out houses in different shades. So far manually. In one of the following lessons, I will show you an interesting way of coloring. However, you might want to bring some of houses to the front or closer to the background during placing houses. Commands of the Arrange group will help you with it. Send backward moves the selected object one position deeper. Bring forward moves the selected object one position closer. Send to back, selected object jumps behind all objects on the illustration. Bring to front, selected object jumps to the front of all objects on the illustration. These commands will find in the Object menu, Arrange, or in the Context menu. I suggest you to remember shortcuts. I propose making one of the buildings with rounded windows, superstructure and a triangular roof. You already know how to round all the corners. But to round one corner, you can click one round marker and drag it. You can click another marker while holding Shift and round them at the same time. And in the transformation panel, you can choose the type of rounding. It is a standard round, inverted round, and chamfer. Process of making this building is similar, except the shape of the window, rectangular superstructure, and a triangular roof. We'll make it out of a polygon, but this tool makes a hexagon by default. You can change the number of angles during creation. After clicking an artboard with the polygon tool, you can choose a number of angles. Or, while dragging a left mouse button, you can adjust a number of angles by clicking arrows up and down on the keyboard. Or on the transform panel. Well, let's see that you can resize polygon by specifying its radius or side length. Moving on, we'll make a little flattened shape of the roof by changing its height without any difficulties. Let's continue. Ellipse is familiar to you as well, and today we'll make clouds of it. You already know how to do this. Also, don't forget to combine them into a group. But there's another form of this shape, a pie or a Pac-Man or a piece of pizza. To make it, you should drag this round marker or change start and end values of pie on the transform panel. I propose to plant tulips in our city. To do this, let's make a pie open to the top and add a petal as an ellipse. If you want to rotate some object, you can drag your mouse a little further than the square marker at the bounding box. To make it work, mouse pointer should turn into a double-sided curved arrow. To rotate an object at 45 degrees, hold Shift while doing it. Or use a transform panel to set or select the desired angle. Let's get back to the flower. Let's make a stem out of a rectangle. Making groups is optional, but makes your work easier. Plant your tulips wherever you want. Our city already looks nice, but it lacks some fun. I suggest putting a Ferris wheel. We shall start with pillars, but a simple rectangle won't be enough. We will shear, in other words, tilt it a little. To do this, we'll change this parameter on the transform panel. The resulting shape is called a parallelogram. To make a second pillar, we need the same shape but mirrored. And here I represent a reflect tool, which just reflects either the object itself or a copy of it. We need a copy. Pick a reflect tool. Hold an Alt key and click a top acute angle. In the opened window, we can select a reflect direction with a marked reflection point. We need a vertical one. Then we press Copy. If we hadn't held an Alt key, we would have reflected relatively to the center of the object. Next step is wheel spokes. Let's work with a line segment tool. That's another primitive, literally. There's no one simpler. And we'll make a line from the point where sharp angles of pillars touch at the top. We'll draw a line straight up, so drag a mouse up while holding Shift. And then we'll put spokes. Pick a rotate tool and click the first point of a line while holding an Alt key. After that, we'll pick a rotation angle. The whole trick here is that by dividing 360 by this angle, we get an integer. It won't look good in any other way, but you can choose any angle like that. Remember that choosing bigger angle, you get smaller the number of spokes. Make a copy and press Ctrl D until you make a full turn. In the same way, we can decorate some spokes with bulbs. I mean ellipses. Our remaining task is just to draw a large circle from the contact point of the spokes. To do this, hold Alt and Shift while drawing. We've just observed the way Reflect and Mirror tools work, but there are a few tools in the Adobe Illustrator that work in the same way. Scale tool scales an object or its copy. Shear tool shears an object or its copy. But if we need to scale, move or rotate an object at the same time, we'll use a command Object menu, Transform, Transform Each, Ctrl Alt Shift D. And if we need to repeat objects with these parameters, press Ctrl D as many times as we need. There are a few more primitives to review. First one is the star. We can use it in our picture in case of night landscape, or you can use it in the way you want. Process of making star is the same as of a polygon, but unlike it, we won't be able to change the number of points after its creation. The star has three parameters: outer radius, inner radius, and a number of points. And we can set all of them after clicking with the Star tool. Besides that, if you create a star by dragging, you can hold Ctrl to change the outer radius, and we can change the number of points by pressing an up and down arrow keys. So, if you need to, you can add stars to your illustration. And the last primitive is a spiral. We can make plants, wind, waves, part of a snail or a scroll picture, anything your imagination can possibly offer you. It's very easy to make a spiral. We can click with this tool and set radius, decay, number of segments and style, it means direction in this case. Or you can hold Ctrl while dragging left mouse button to change decay and press an up and down arrow keys to adjust the number of segments. Well, that's all for today. You learned a lot. You saw what 6 primitives look like and how they are created. You discovered their hidden possibilities. You saw the way rotate, mirror, scale and shear tools work, and I hope you tried to create a similar picture, because you only learn the most by practicing. In the next lesson we will create even more complex objects from simple ones. In the meantime, practice your skills. I wish you inspiration and success. See ya!